You know that feeling. You meet someone, and something about them just pulls you in. Not slowly, immediately. There's an electricity you can't explain. A familiarity that feels almost too comfortable for someone you just met. And something inside you says, this is it. This one is different. But weeks pass, maybe months, and you start to notice the same patterns. They're inconsistent, available one day, distant the next. Warm when they need something, cold when they don't. And you find yourself doing what you always do. Giving more, trying harder, convincing yourself that if you just love them the right way, they'll finally show up the way you need them to. They don't. And you're left wondering, why does this keep happening to me? Here's the truth that took me a long time to understand. You don't keep falling for unavailable people because you're unlucky. You keep falling for them because somewhere deep in your nervous system, unavailability feels like home. Let me explain. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. From the very first years of your life, it was learning what love looks like, what it feels like, what it requires from you. And it learned all of this from the people around you. If the love you experienced early in life was consistent and warm and safe, your brain learned that love feels like safety. But if the love you experienced was unpredictable, sometimes present, sometimes absent, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, your brain learned something very different. It learned that love feels like uncertainty, like longing, like working hard to earn something that should have been freely given. And here's the part that changes everything. Your brain doesn't just remember these patterns intellectually. It stores them in your body, in your nervous system, in the way your heart rate responds to certain people. So when you meet someone who triggers that familiar uncertainty, that push and pull, that hot and cold energy, your nervous system doesn't say warning. It says, I know this feeling. This is familiar. This feels like love. But familiar is not the same as right. And intensity is not the same as depth. The butterflies you feel around someone inconsistent, that anxious electric pull, is not passion. It's your nervous system recognizing a pattern it learned a long time ago. A pattern it's been trying to resolve ever since. Think about it this way. If you grew up in an environment where love had to be earned, where affection was conditional, where you never quite knew where you stood, then a partner who gives you everything freely and consistently might actually feel boring to you at first. Too easy, too available, not exciting enough. And that's not a character flaw. That's a nervous system that was trained on a very specific frequency of love. One that requires effort, one that keeps you guessing, one that never quite lets you rest. So what do you do with this? The first step is the hardest one. You stop trusting the pull. Not forever. Not with everyone. But you learn to pause when you feel that immediate, overwhelming magnetic attraction to someone. And you ask yourself one honest question. Is this electricity or is this familiarity? Because real love doesn't feel like anxiety with good moments. Real love feels like peace with excitement in it. It feels like someone who shows up the same way on Tuesday as they do on Saturday. Someone whose presence makes you feel more like yourself, not less. The second step, you get curious about what your nervous system is actually looking for. Not to judge yourself, but to understand yourself. Because the pattern you keep repeating in relationships is not random. It's a map. It's pointing directly at something unresolved. Something that needs your attention. Not someone else's love to fix it. Your own. The people you keep choosing are not your destiny. They're your diagnosis. And diagnoses exist not to define you, but to show you exactly where the healing needs to happen. The third step. You practice sitting with the discomfort of something healthy. Because here's what most people don't tell you. When you start choosing differently, when you start allowing people who are consistent and present and genuinely available, it won't feel like the movies at first. It'll feel strange, too quiet, almost suspicious. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something is right for the first time. Your nervous system is meeting something it wasn't trained on. And like any new experience, it takes time to feel like home. But I promise you this, the version of love that makes you anxious to keep is not the version that will make you whole. The version that makes you feel safe enough to be fully yourself. That's the one worth waiting for. That's the one worth doing the work for. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt more drawn to someone unavailable than to someone who was genuinely there for you? See you in the next one.